Hi everyone, Steve from the Audiophiles. Welcome. I'm at the Hi-Fi Center, 433 Carroll. All of your hi-fi needs, check it out. We got amazing equipment here. This is where I do my shootouts behind me. And speaking of that, I've had a lot of compliments and comments about my shirts here. You can see this latest one. I get them at tees.ca here in Vancouver. So a shout out to tees.ca. Thank you so much for the shirt. Speaking of shootouts, before we get to the roundtable, I was very grateful and fortunate enough to have one of my viewers send me a sealed ERC, The Doors, to review. I'm going to actually do a shootout with between the ERC, The Doors, Vinyl Me Pleases, The Doors, and the Rhino version, original mono version mix back in, it was cut in 2009. I don't have a original version, can't find one anywhere, unfortunately, but I definitely will keep looking before I do my final video. But maybe next week, check out that video of the Doors ERC shootout. It should be amazing. And if you haven't already, hit that subscription button. It helps me out a ton. Now let's get to this roundtable. This was a mega one, incredible. We'll see you on the other side of the Audiophiles. Steve Westman from the Audiophiles, my biggest roundtable yet. As you can see, the crew here. We're going to have a fun one today. I want to introduce a couple new guests. We're going to start with Josh Nora. Josh, welcome to the roundtable. Thank you for joining. This guy's got 20 years experience, worked at, I guess, a bunch of record stores when you were a teenager. You're a buyer, I think you said, at Josie Records, and most recently a buyer at Analogue Productions. And then you left Analogue Productions in 2021 to set up his own shop called the High Fidelity Records. You can see his website, highfidelity.records.com, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. And his YouTube channel under the same name, High Fidelity Records. Welcome to the roundtable.
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Excited. And then we got a new guest today. Needs a little bit of an introduction, but he's been around for a long time. Syd Schwartz, 30 years in the music business. Worked at major labels, indie labels. You have a background in retail and wholesale music, experience working with artists and management. I guess you do digital music, tech startup. And fun fact, he's written liner notes for Yes. What album for Yes did you write the liner notes for?
Progeny, the big box set that came out around the Live 72 Close to the Edge tour.
Nice. And you were mentioning too, your college thesis was on the Deadheads.
Yeah, I got my sociology degree writing about Deadheads as a social movement.
That's amazing. And then if you want to check out Syd's Instagram account, he's at Jazz and Coffee, and it's got a lot of followers and it's doing really well. And I was able to go through it the other day. I'm really impressed and follow that. That's really growing and a lot of excitement around there. So welcome, Josh and Syd. Thank you for joining. I've got my wingman, Nathan Goss, as usual, does a lot of reviews for the different Mobile Fidelity Facebook groups. Controversial at times, eh, Nathan?
Yeah, I prefer it that way, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I've got Arnoldo de Urso from Fidelia's Frequency. His YouTube channel. I think you're on mute right now. It shows me you're muting, Arnoldo, so you might want to just take that off.
I was just motioning the sign.
Oh, okay. Welcome. And then I have Tim Tolbert. You'll know him from his YouTube channel, University of Vinyl. Tim, welcome. Glad you could make it. I know you couldn't make it last week. You actually had to work for a living, so I appreciate coming on. That sucks. And then we need no introduction. You know him as Mazzy. His YouTube channel is Norman Masloff. Mazzy Masloff is here on the round table today. And let's start this off. Start with my guest first. I'm going to go right to Syd. Syd, anything you want to report? This is an audiophile roundtable. I know you've worked with audiophile companies. Is there any news out there, guys, that I've missed this week? Any audiophile news, announcements, releases that anyone's interested? Syd, if you want to start, any jazz releases that you consider worthy?
I mean, I spent a chunk of the early part of the week kind of following up and reading a lot of the comments and some pretty strong opinions about people's experience with Record Store Day, since that was that was last
Saturday.
weekend. Yeah. Lots of people out and about. I know Record Store Day has had quite an arc of ascent. Some would say an arc of descent over the last few years. I got out on Record Store Day. I hope those who were hoping to get out and have an opportunity to rub shoulders these last couple of years with the pandemic and all. It's not been easy. I think both as sellers and buyers of vinyl to always get out and do the thing. I was really struck from the store that I went to over the weekend. It was quite crowded, and I didn't get out until after lunch. I mean, I'm not necessarily an early riser to begin with, but there was I'm not one of those crazy let's camp out at 3 o'clock in the morning and do all that. I haven't done that since waiting online for Pink Floyd tickets in the late 80s. It was really quite crowded. Quite a younger crowd than what I've seen in the past. And I know there was a lot of chatter about Taylor Swift having driven a lot of that due to the volume of Taylor Swift product in the marketplace, which was still not enough to satisfy demand. There was, I think, some good-natured grumbling about, Taylor Swift and the younger fans. And, there wasn't as much of a "you kids get off my lawn" as there could have been out there, which was, kind of nice. And I did see some of the I don't want to call them grizzled veterans. That doesn't seem very respectful either. But I did see some of the older members of the vinyl community speaking to some of the younger members of the vinyl community and offering what I thought was some really good,
That's
kind
cool.
of advice and guidelines. Some folks, somebody saying, hey, there were only a couple of Zeppelin records left in the used vinyl section, and someone looking to go and buy what was clearly a very beat up copy of Coda, having not owned any Zeppelin on vinyl, and a guy kind of stepping in and saying, that's probably not a great place to start. Here's where you might start, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a bunch of that, which I was pretty happy about. And then, reading a lot of the feedback from people from, what they bought and what the quality was like, et cetera. So that was really a lot of what I was spending time doing in the early part of the week.
So did you buy anything?
I did. I did buy a couple of things. I bought the Mono Chet Baker, which sounds great. I was really happy about. I had a pretty worn copy of that I was excited to upgrade. And actually, the thing I stumbled across that I've been missing a copy on vinyl since college. I found a really almost mint. It looked unplayed copy of Robin Trower's Bridge of Sighs, which you see all the time. But I feel like every time I've picked up a copy, it looks like it's been through 4 years of college, and I mean that in every possible way. And I this copy just was in perfect shape and sounds great, and was really, really happy to get that. So a fairly modest Record Store Day for me. What about you? What would you get, Steve?
I'm in Vancouver. I mean, the Record Store Day is not that great, so I didn't get anything. There was nothing. I wanted the Chet Baker, and the Chet Baker, by the way, everyone, that's a Kevin Gray mastered production as well. I mean, I've heard some great things about it. I got absolutely nothing at Record Store Day. Josh, what about you? Having obviously a high fidelity record store or online store, do you guys partake? Does your company partake in RSD, or do you go out and do it? What do you do?
I've been involved in it before, working at other shops, but as far as my shop, no, because I think as Mr. Schwartz said, it is kind of, or at least from my perspective, it's a lost leader. Like those titles, there's not a whole lot of profit being made. So as a record store owner, what you're hoping is people are going to come in for those Taylor Swifts, for those Chet Bakers, but then they're also going to pick up some used stuff, which is where, a record store makes its money in the end. So that's what you're hoping for. So yeah, but this year not so much, no.
Unless you get the gray hairs talking them out of Coda, then you're in trouble.
Right, exactly.
Arnoldo, what did you get?
Well, I got quite a few things. I did not get the Chet Baker. I'm very happy with the stereo version.
Yeah.
And I didn't get any jazz titles at all. Probably that was the only one I was interested in, and I passed because I have the stereo. I got quite a few things: the Nuggets box, the Tori Amos compilation, the Eric Carr reissue, and I don't know, quite the Stevie Nicks live album. It's quite a few. I got we could spend a long time talking about.
Right. So you spent your allowance.
Well, actually, I had a birthday 2 weeks ago, so someone was held off on a gift for me, and I was like, okay, perfect. Hold your money, and then you can spend it on Record Store Day for me. And it's really interesting, Josh. The record store that I went to in Amityville, New York, is also called High Fidelity Records and CDs, but it's spelled differently. It's HIGH instead of how it's spelled on your shirt.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan, how about you?
I did not get anything that day, but then temptation got the best of me in the days preceding that, and I had to get the Chet Baker and the Bill Evans. So I won't explain how I found them, but
Did you not do a review on? You haven't done a review on those two yet, have you? For the pages. I'm waiting for that. Okay.
no.
Tim from University of Vinyl. Did you have a successful day?
Yeah, it was fun. I picked up Chet Baker, Bill Evans, and Warren Zevon's The Wind. The cool thing about where I am, I'm kind of friends with two record shop owners that have been in business for less than a year, and they both decided to kind of make the investment. And they were both very pleased. And I went to both places, and they were busy. They had people lining up at 5 a.m. Neither of them opened until 8. I wasn't there until 8:15, but they were really happy. So I think that's, similar to what Syd was talking about. It was, kind of nice to see, and people were mixing in the crowd well, and there are a lot of these Swifties around, but I noticed that they were looking at, they moved on to used records and looked around, and that's important. And the fact that we've got two brand new record shops less than a year, as far as I know, they're doing well, and they decided to make the investment. So I thought that was promising.
And last,
if that's the worst thing that's going on, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah.
In all, what I mean? Like, if the worst thing is that people are out shopping, I mean, that's.
And so Mazzy, you flexed a little bit last week.
I had a great time.
Mazzy flexed on the John Lennon box. I
Yeah.
saw that video.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
I did get the Lennon. I'm a Beatle collector too, so
Yeah.
that side. Jazz wise, I only bought two jazz. I bought the Chet Baker, and I love the Miles outtakes. Now I have all the the Metal Spine CD series, so I'm aware of all those outtakes. I love those. As we talked about last time, I got actually 5 of those jazz albums when I spoke to Zev, so I didn't have to go out and go after Zev Feldman's things. But I loved the day. I loved all the young people, the women, and everyone was so friendly. But this was I remember going to the very first record store day at Amoeba in San Francisco, and nobody was there. Like, where is everybody? It was one end cap. But this was the crowdest it's ever been since I've been going, and everyone was friendly and helpful. And I just thinks it brought new blood in. Easy Street had a show that evening with Mike McCready's new offset band or project band from Pearl Jam. And Seattle, it has like 15, 20 record stores in the general area, and it's a healthy music town. And everyone was out all day. When I went to other stores later, literally lines 5-6 hours, like afternoon. Usually the lines are gone by 10 a.m.
Well, and that was the lines for your autograph sessions, wasn't it?
Right. But I did get the Nuggets box, which I mean, I'm that generation, so I fell in love with that album in 72. I got the Lennon box, and I got the Grateful Dead. I get all those Grateful Dead flange and process. I'm a San Franciscan, and I follow the Dead, but I was never a Dead head. So I'm not in. Yeah. I loved it. I had a great time.
So we're going to talk OJC as well. I mean, there's some upcoming titles. I know, Mazzy, you've got some of those there you can show us. I mean, Thelonious Monk with John Coltrane, I guess, drops end of May. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. Working with Miles Davis Quintet, I think around May the 12th. I've pre-ordered both, so I'm super excited to get those because I don't actually have any OJCs. So I'm really excited to get those two pressings. What do you have there, Mazzy?
Well, I wanted to show this because I got this collection I'm helping this person sell, and this was in it. And I'm very familiar with Andre Previn with his scores and his orchestration. I've never don't think I've never really had heard his jazz albums before on, what is this on Contemporary? And I pulled this out, I cleaned it out. This is an OG. This is a friggin' wonderful record. I mean, it's easy in a way, but I love the score to West Side Story, and it's really, everyone and their mother did best versions of the West Side Story, but with Shelly Manne and Shelly Manne and Red Mitchell, this sounds amazing. And then a week later, after I started playing this, I saw that OJC is coming out with this. So I think this is something, it's an unusual choice for them to start with. Isn't this one of the first two, I believe? Am I wrong there?
I don't know.
I'm not sure if it's one of the first two, but it's one of the big, Previn had kind of two. There's the My Fair Lady and the West Side Story are kind of his
Unless
two.
I'm thinking of Kraft doing it. Maybe it's a Kraft coming out. But this is a fantastic record, and it sounds amazing. So I just thought I'd show that because I had never heard it before.
Nathan, you brought some jazz stuff with you this time, right?
I did bring some stuff. Yes.
What do you have? Show me.
Oh, you said to bring our top.
Yeah, I want to see.
Right?
I want to talk that first. We got so much to talk about, but I'm curious because I know I always like your reviews.
Smart Alec.
Nice.
All right. Now I'll kick things off with what started it for me. So prior to this album, I had heard a lot of jazz, but I never really listened to jazz. So this was the album that for me really everybody digs Bill Evans. This is like the first time that I actually sat there and really was like letting the music saturate me and thinking about it. And so and it has Peace on it, which I think is one of the greatest compositions.
Peace. Amazing.
So yeah. So that's my first pick.
Okay, Arnoldo, your turn.
My first pick. I didn't want to go with I'm a newbie at jazz, right? So I didn't want to go with the usual Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, or the Take 5 Dave Brubeck.
You'd hear it from Mazzy if you got the Kind of Blue. He would be like, "Oh my God, come on!"
Oh yeah, then I'd have to show something that probably. Yeah. So, but I went with another Miles Davis album, which I really love. The Elevator to the what's the exact translation?
Gallows. Gallows.
Yes, Gallows. Yeah, it's only a 10-inch. This is the Sam Records version. A friend of mine sent me, actually, maybe Mazzy has this. There's an extended version that came out, I think in 2 CD set or something like that, that featured maybe all of the music that was on.
That's the Sam Records, right? That's the Sam. Yeah.
Sam Records 10-inch, yeah.
Well, Columbia put out a version with that on one side. I forget, was it what's the record that was on for Columbia in the 60s? It had
I have a friend who sent me the file of it's a rip of 2.
Yeah, side 2 is something else. One side is that, and then
So yeah, I chose this one. It's very different from what I was expecting from Miles Davis. And I don't know, it's just, I mean, you guys are familiar with how all the care that Sam Records puts into their reissues, and it's just so well done.
Good pick.
Mr. Schwartz, what did you pick? What did you bring for us?
Brought a few things. I didn't necessarily go with just favorite jazz, but this was Audiophile Roundtable. I went with some favorite jazz records that are particularly terrific sounding. I don't know how well if you know this one, but this is Art Pepper, recorded live 1980. This is on the Pure Pleasure label. This was originally released as 2 individual albums on the Mole Jazz label. This was recorded over 2 nights in June 1980 with a particularly strong quartet of arts. Multiple microphones, no EQ, no compression, no nothing. Close mic up front. I think it's the best sounding live Art Pepper record, and Art Pepper has a lot of live records. and the performance is just, I mean, look, Art Pepper has, I mean, he's got an incredibly fascinating life. If you haven't read Straight Life, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best, autobiography / biography, ever written in music, regardless of genre. It's a harrowing tale. It's not going to make anyone like Art Pepper as a person anymore. In fact, it may make you really actively dislike Art Pepper as a person. Anyone who thinks that the Stones or Zeppelin kind of cornered the market on hard partying is going to read this and feel like those guys were Cub Scouts compared to Art Pepper. I mean, this guy was a thug, active criminal, racist, misogynist. This is not a nice guy. But what you hear when you listen to late period Art Pepper is a man who clearly realizes he has wasted the majority of his life, and he has regret, and he has anger, and he has sorrow, and he has all of these emotions, and he pours every single piece of that into his horn in the last few years of his life. And he leaves it all on stage. It's amazing to hear.
Wow. Now I have to buy the book.
Yeah.
You absolutely should read the book. It's gripping. It's really amazing to read.
Josh, what did you bring?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a new release per se, but it's Audiophile Roundtable, right? So obviously, brought the Kirsten Edkins, the Shapes and Sounds. Obviously,
I know of her actually. I don't know if you know that.
yeah, definitely, yeah. So not only is it just a fantastic record musically, but sonically, obviously being recorded in Kevin's living room, him trying to do the same thing Rudy Van Gelder was trying to do there, and the all tube setup. I mean, it is probably my favorite contemporary jazz release of the last probably 10 years. And I'm not just saying that. I think they're still out there. I think it's still in print, but if you don't have this one, this is like, if you're a jazz, even if you just love music, you need to get this in your collection. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Do you have one for sale on your website?
We do, yeah, we have it for sale. I think it's people get so caught up in pressings. They're like, oh, is this the first pressing or the second pressing? I think these are the second pressings that are coming out right now, but I mean, it's from the same plate, so.
Plug it. You'll probably sell it on this one. So highfidelityrecords.com, is that your website?
Yeah, we're just hi-fidelityrecords.com. I sell through there, obviously sell through Discogs, and just trying to keep good quality used and new stuff. But yeah, this is a fantastic record. I'm trying to get her to come. We have a little jazz club here in Tulsa, which is where I'm located, and I've been really trying to tag them up and tag her up. I'm like, let's get together. Let's get you in town to get you in front of some new, maybe some jazz fans that haven't heard of her or aren't part of the audiophile world. So, but yeah.
Well, you're in Tulsa, not Texas. I thought you were in Texas.
No, yeah. Just, I was commuting back and forth when I worked for Analogue.
Got it.
And Tim, what did you bring?
I'm a big fan of the CTI label, early mid 70s. This is not an audiophile quality record, I don't think, but cut by Rudy Van Gelder. I think it's Freddie Hubbard's best.
Yeah.
Red Clay, incredible, players on this. Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, the typical kind of stable of players that Creed Taylor, rounded up for all these albums. But man, this thing sounds amazing for it's a 1970 original, and they're not super expensive. I think they're raising in price, but I don't know. If you know, a lot of people know this album, but love it. It's great.
Did I miss anyone? I think we got everyone, right? Arnoldo, I got you at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I just want to show, I showed this because of the OJC thing, but sound wise, I pulled this, and it's more of a Brazilian pop thing. And if anyone thinks that Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66 is too poppy, this is an album you have to get. It's a 77, and you have to find the original. The A&M labels like this always sound awesome. This is a jazzy pop record, and the vocals are not lyrical. They're very percussive. This is one of the best sounding regular issued records in my entire collection. Every time I pull it out, and this is my copy I got in 74 when I worked in a record store, and It is a fabulous album and a great sounding. And you'll be surprised it's not, in the late 60s, Brazil 66, Fool on the Hill, all that kind of pop stuff they did. This is nothing like that, although it's got Brazilian and it's very accessible, but it's really, really good. So I just kind of wanted to show that. Try to find a regular label. This would be good. I know Intervention does a lot of A&M record issues, and I feel like he's just south of me, Gig Harbor. I think this would be an excellent album to do an A&M thing version, Intervention version, because it is so good. So
Love it.
I'll go back. I want to see more albums. This is amazing. We're gonna get the sales up on Discogs with all this. I've been listening to Picture of Heath. We're talking Art Pepper and Chet. So I mean, these two guys together. This is a fantastic album. This is the Tone Poets, mastered by Kevin Gray. I think this came out. I want to say it was released maybe February, March of this year. Was it this? Was it this year? I think it was this year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's the one that made it half the people reset their alignment on their cartridges and their
was
arms.
This the one, or was it Picture of Heath? Okay,
that's the one where some people had skipping problems.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have an issue with it at all. I really enjoyed it.
I didn't either.
I thought was it Curtis Counts' bass was incredible on this one as well. Really enjoyed his bass playing on this album. Anyways, Tone Poet, and then we're going back. Oh, there you go. We're going back to like price point as well. The Tone Poets, right? $35-40. I mean, you're getting an audiophile quality pressing. I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, this is the thing. It's if you're new to jazz, this is for the price. This is the ones to get right now.
Definitely, yeah. It's the golden age right now of jazz reissues. I mean, with even with the ECM stuff that's coming out. I mean, everyone's getting their itches scratched, whatever you're into. So, and like you said, at that price point, in that 35 to 40, I mean, and some of those originals are getting hard to find, even the 80s OJCs. So
yeah, and that's the thing. We've been talking about this for on our roundtable all the time. I mean, the originals, I mean, obviously some of them sound great. I had an issue last week. My Joe Cocker, my original A&M didn't sound so great. So I was mad about it, and I know Mazzy loves this cover. So I picked up the Speaker's Corner. It doesn't. So that's my Speaker's Corner. And yes, everyone, fantastic pressing, fantastic. It sounds exactly the way I expected it to sound. These are 70s pressings, right? So I mean, they were more mastered for the radio. So I mean, you're gonna hear the vocals, you're gonna hear the bass more because of the mastering, and that's what I'm hearing on this one. Whereas I just felt my original was sounding very muddy. So I like the Speaker's Corner. This is from the original master tapes, according to them. And then I think Speaker's Corner, all of their pressings except for I think it was Eye in the Sky, were all pressed, or I guess all mastered through Analog, and Eye in the Sky was a digital. Anyways, I got the Speaker's Corner. I know I got a lot of comments after our video last week, so I was able to pick it up. And it was $60.
What a weird cover.
A&M around that period.
Love this cover.
Good. Maybe because it's from the UK, but A&M stuff around that period, like I said, are usually pretty good.
Sid, do you have much experience with Speaker's Corner? I know I wanted to talk a little bit about it. It's a German audiophile company.
Yeah, I brought a couple. I've got a few. So I mean, the only one I have that still has the Speaker's Corner sticker on it. This is first of all fantastic jazz record. If you see anything in the bin reasonably priced by Nathan Davis, highly recommend picking it up. Nathan Davis, one of the great unsung heroes of jazz. He primarily his huge contribution is as an educator. He started the University of Pittsburgh jazz education program. The Sonny Rollins Archive at the University of Pittsburgh. His contributions to the world of jazz education have been absolutely enormous. Mr. Dr. Davis, who graduated Wesleyan with a degree in ethnomusicology, he did not have a great relationship with the music industry. So even though Art Blakey asked him to become a jazz messenger, even though Blue Note wanted to sign him in the '60s, he really kind of wanted none of that. And like a lot of Black musicians in the 60s, he found living in Europe to be a far more satisfying experience, where there, was not the overt, institutionalized racism. He found it a more creative, easier atmosphere to, to exist in. And he cut 3 records in 1 year, of which the Hip Walk was one of the 3. He also cut an excellent record called Happy Girl, which is unusual in that it has Larry Young on piano instead of his usual instrument, organ. So also worth picking up. But this Speaker's Corner pressing of the Hip Walk is superb. I have a Japanese pressing of this record as well, which isn't nearly as good. The Speaker's Corner pressing is excellent. I also have Speaker's Corner pressing of Herbie Hancock's Flood. This absolutely crushes my I have an OG Japanese pressing, and this blows it away, no question. Really, really good. I didn't bring it here with me. I have a copy of Thelonious Monk in Tokyo on Speaker's Corner. That one's a bit of a disappointment. That one sounds kind of flat and lifeless. I don't have another copy to compare it to, so I don't know if it's just how the record was originally recorded. Again, Monk has a ton of live records. Some are better than others. Maybe this one just isn't very inspiring. It wasn't captured very well, but and my recollection, probably because I sold it, my copy of Miles Smiles, done by Speaker's Corner, sounded a little bright, according to the note that I had made some time ago. But I've also kind of moved away. At this point, if I want to listen to Miles Smiles, I'm listening to a mono copy, not a stereo copy. I think the mono Miles Smiles is far, far better than the stereo Miles Smiles.
Sam issued a couple Nathan Davis records that are pretty good. Sam Records out of Paris.
Yeah, they seem to have a relationship with the estate. They have a live Nathan Davis record that is excellent. It's a superb recording.
Yeah, I have that.
Performance. Yeah, really, really good. And I think they also did Peace Treaty, I think was the other one, which I think they just reissued with a bonus 7-inch. And I think Kevin Gray mastered that one.
Yep.
Anyone else have experience with Speaker's Corner? I mean, I've been with the ones that I have. I also brought, I mean, Steely Dan. This is the Speaker's Corner cut of the Can't Buy a Thrill. Sounds great. I don't have a copy of the UHQR that AP put out, just because I have so many copies of this. I love this. This sounds better than my original copy of Can't Buy a Thrill. And it does sound better than, I think it's, I got a digital cut copy that I got on Amazon. I don't think it was a Bernie Grundman cut. I can't remember now.
The new one? Yeah,
I think I did a video on it. But anyways, I'm really, really happy with my Speaker's Corner version. Amazing. Expensive, I think, now too.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Oh, yes.
So I think that record works better in 33 than the 45. I mean, an Elvis song is what, like 1 minute and 50 seconds. So like getting up every 4.5 minutes to change sides. So I like the 33 that Speaker's Corner did over the Analogue Productions that did the 45. But that's just my thoughts on.
Definitely.
I'm not that way with everything. I obviously love a lot of the 45 stuff that's out there, but every 6 minutes gets a little bit much.
Yeah, and sometimes things just flow better. The album flows better, So I don't know. Yeah, if you love it, get them both, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
You got Patty and you got Lou Reed there, Arnoldo. I see. What do you got?
Ooh, nice.
This sounds amazing.
I know. I have that one too.
This sounds amazing. I don't have an original to compare this one to, but I'm perfectly happy with this reissue of Horses. Now, you want the bad on Speaker's Corner?
Yeah.
I can give you the bad. I don't have it because I sent it back. I went through 3 copies of Harry Nilsson's Ariel Pandemonium Ballet.
Yeah.
They all had like non-fill, all 3 of them in the same exact spot.
So a pressing issue. How did it sound?
It was a plating. It was probably a plating issue.
Yeah.
And I think it's no longer in print. So yeah, I got it, and then I had to return it. It sounded good, but I could just get over the fact that I was paying $40 for a defective record.
Tim, what did you bring?
Buddy Guy and Junior Wells. The cool thing about these records, the sticker on this is $29. They're between 29 and maybe 50. This is a cool record. I got to give a little shout out to a friend of mine who likes my channel. He's got a record shop called Wag Your Tail Records in Villa Park, Illinois. He actually sent me this. He likes my channel. So thanks, man. I appreciate this.
That's
and
awesome.
This is a really good sounding record. So anyway.
Well, speaking of that, we'll get going on some other stuff too. I mean, talking about viewers, I mean, this is controversial pressing. This is ERC, The Doors. I got one of my viewers sent me a sealed copy for me to do a shootout with some of the equipment behind me here, which I've been listening to before we got on, and I will probably have that out next week. I don't have an original copy of this, but I mean, I have the Vinyl Me Please one that was mastered by Bruce Botnick and cut by Bernie Grunman. Now the Vinyl Me Please, which is interesting, they both use the same tape, I believe, but because the Vinyl Me Please was a digital cut, they're able to get it back to this, like Light My Fire and The End were a little bit slower on the original album than the radio play. So they were able to actually get the speed back to the original sound on the Vinyl Me Please album. Whereas I would assume this one, because they just got the Lido tape, they would have cut it directly Lido right through their system onto vinyl. So I don't think the speed will be the same. So it'll be interesting to compare this guy. I've never had an ERC record before. I'm very honored to get a copy of this to basically do a comparison. And I also have the Grunman Mono Rhino, I think 2009 press, and I'll compare it with and put that out to see what the differences are. And I don't know. I'll let you know. I mean, you got to remember too. I mean, the Doors, they had Jim Morrison in the vocal booth, and they were doing live recordings of this album, right? They would have recorded this in 4 or 5 days. It was a mono mix to begin with, and they would have done a stereo mix, no different than the Beatles in '67, right? Wouldn't have spent a lot of time on the stereo mix. I know the pitch is off a little bit on the stereo and mono mix.
I like the stereo better on that album.
Yeah. And Josh, I mean, Analogue Productions did a 45 RPM stereo version of that. It was mastered by Bruce Sachs as well back in, I want to say 2014. I might be wrong, or maybe I'm wrong. 2014 rings a bell, but I'm not going to compare apples to oranges. Obviously, those are stereos. Yeah, you definitely can hear the differences in the stereo versus the mono. I'm more of a stereo guy with the Doors, if I was to choose.
Psychedelia. I'm a stereo Sgt. Pepper, and I know it's against the Bible. You have to be a mono Pepper, but I grabbed a stereo when that came out.
Well, the Nimbus Sgt. Pepper is probably the cut to go to if you're wanting to get one of the best sounding Sgt. Pepper. And that interesting story there, that was actually cut and mastered by Jack Hunt, who actually mastered the MoFi one back in 1980. Well, a friend of mine
brought over. A month ago, I finally for the very first time heard the original MoFi UHQR Pepper.
Okay, and that's a Stan Ricker cut. So Stan Ricker did the UHQR,
and I have the MoFi Beetle bot. I hate the Beetle MoFi things, but that UHQR Pepper I've never heard it like that. It's amazing. It's amazing.
So what's everyone's opinion on like the whole restoration theory in general? Like, if you were to compare it to like film, right? So old film, we know it's deteriorating over time. So you can preserve old film, and you can, run it, and you can tighten up the grain structure and do a lot of things that make an older movie look newer. Newer TVs have like the jitter and blur reduction to make it look like it's, like 30 frames per second instead of 24, and it has a very unnatural look to it. So you can make old stuff look polished and new, and you can do the same thing with old sounding stuff where you can, like you were talking about, like the tracking speed or the recording speed or whatever. But I mean, do you guys agree that you should leave things be if that's how it originally was intended, or do you think that we should make it sound like what it should have been or what it could have been?
Well, I think that's interesting. Bruce Botnick, who engineered the Doors, I mean, I've read a bunch of his interviews, and it's like, he was into the music back then, but now listening to it now, you can hear some of the things he wants to change. So having a digital step, you're able to do that and make it the way he wants. I mean, if you have the plugin process, obviously you're getting rid of the wow and the flutter, so that helps. I know he was mentioning that there's still a pitch issue with the original Doors album, so eventually they're going to correct the pitch issue as well. So that's interesting. But getting back to the Doors, the perception box has the proper speed, apparently. If you have the perception box, the Doors perception box, and of course the Vinyl Me Please, the speed has been corrected on those pressings. So I would assume then that this, and I probably won't be able to tell the speed differences. I mean, it's so minute, but the speed probably hasn't been corrected. And of course it hasn't been corrected on the ERC, because they just basically took the Lido tape and then cut it right to vinyl. They didn't do anything with it.
I think the planching process, possibly the best use of it, has been on all these great live Dead shows and those box sets and things. Because, you know, the Dead were never played in tune anyway, but not even the tune. The wow and flutter stuff. I'm kidding there, but you know what I'm talking about, the static or the wow and flutter stuff. Those sound really good, and those were, you know, board. I mean, of course, Owsley and what's her name, the woman who Gail Jackson. Betty Cantor, right. Amazing recordings, considering everything.
Oh, amazing. I mean, Betty Cantor's still alive, isn't she?
Yeah.
I would love to chat with her. That would be a fascinating conversation.
Well, she used to do the sound at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco for years, at the, you know, the Gospel Sundays.
I mean, think about that. A female in the industry back then, like that's a trailblazer as far as I'm concerned. I have a lot of respect for that. That's crazy. That's so cool.
The question, though, is, I mean, it's really a very different question if you're talking about should restoration or, you know, digital fixing truly be used to fix something that is an acknowledged error, flaw, or problem versus enhancing or changing or revisionist history, you know, to you know, modernize or whatever. And I think there's been a lot of careless language used over the years that I think makes that question a little bit fuzzy. I watched a lot of this play out in one of what I think is one of the best, by far best reissue campaigns of the last 15 years, which has been the Jethro Tull campaign that Pangyric and Parlophone did, which came out through Rhino here in the US and Warner Music in you know, in the UK. I mean, talk about a bang for the buck. I mean, yes, there were vinyl versions that hit a subset of it here, but the packaging, I've got one around here. Is that the
Stephen Wilson stuff? The Stephen Wilson stuff?
Yeah, Stephen Wilson, who went, you know, back to the tapes and, you know, remixed it. He did not remaster, he remixed. And the wealth of content. I mean, you're talking about usually 2 CD, 2 DVD sets, sometimes 3 CD, 3 DVD sets that had the original record, associated recordings and bonus tracks, surround sound mixes, a flat transfer of the original master tape, often a needle drop of the UK version of the album, a needle drop of the US version of the record, surround mixes of the bonus. I mean, hours and hours and hours, usually about 100-page booklet that came with it, often an unreleased live concert, video of that concert, and you're talking about a bookshelf
section collection.
Right now, over here, they are all, for the obsessive collector, they are all the exact same size. So if they're on a shelf, they all look beautiful in a row of, you know, all this size, and they interview band members, they interview Ian Anderson, there's a chronology of the tours. If you're a Tull fan, the moment you get one of these, you're going to spend the next 2 weeks just going through it and listening and reading and diving into it. And the cost, I mean, I think this one retailed for $39.98 US,
and now they're hundreds of dollars.
Now they're hundreds of dollars on the secondary market. But it was a fantastic campaign. But one of the things that kind of came out of it, and it's been a controversy surrounding Stephen Wilson's work, is he has a particular approach in terms of sound, and he does work in the digital domain. He did change the sound, particularly Aqualung particularly. Now that was, to my ears, not a terrific recording to begin with. I always felt like it sounded a little muddy, a little soft around the edges. And I think Stephen Wilson brought out the best in that record. I think he turned that into the acoustic electric record it always was versus the electric record I think a lot of people always thought it was. And that record sounds terrific now. But there were just as many people going, yeah, but it doesn't sound like it originally sounded when it was released. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It sounds better. And then they would pelt me with rocks and garbage. So
I wish Stephen Wilson, I know it's a different tangent, but I wish he was the one that would be doing these remixed Beatle things, because Giles Martin is too much in the family, and I think he's not consistent. And as talented as he is, but I think they need someone out of the box like Wilson. I love some of his stuff, some of it I don't love, but I think he would have been the one to do the Beatles. But
well, here he goes. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think they're both trying to accomplish the same thing. They're trying to take this music that's 50 years old, and they're trying to kind of make it sound a little more modern, make it sound like a more modern recording, a little more modern mastering. So hopefully it kind of helps some of these younger cats that are picking it up, be like, oh man, this is fresh. This sounds like some stuff I hear on the radio. Even though, like you said, Giles definitely has a different approach than Steven, but I'm with Syd that the whole stuff that Steven Wilson's awesome.
And that's all remixed, which is beautiful too, what Wilson's done. Back to the Beatles for a second. I know there's been rumors, and I mean, Mazzy and I have talked about it, and we, many of us have the Beatles Mono box set that was cut by Sean McGee in 2014. I mean, that's sort of the grail. If you're a Beatles fan, you got to have that box, which of course I do. Most of you guys have that. There's been rumors that they might repress that at some point. Can't verify that, but I know there's going to be something that comes out this year from Abbey Road or from Apple. I don't think, though, it's going to be Rubber Soul remix. Okay. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know there's going to be something. And my guess, just because it could just be this, it's a world of making money in this business. I bet you it's the soundtracks. I think it's Help. I think it's going to be a package deal. It could be like Help, Hard Day's Night, Help, and Magical Mystery 2 repackaged and remixed. Boom, for Christmas. That'd be kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I had to think out of the box, right? There's going to be something that we're not
that
expecting.
That seems pretty out of the box right now where we are, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, so go back to
the reissue of the EP box set. That hasn't been redone in like 30 years, 40 years.
Is there a demand? I think the demand, is a rough one.
Well, the demand, isn't it always,
they make the demand for us Beatle collectors.
Yeah,
believe
exactly.
me, we'll buy, Paint a Vulgar Picture by the Smiths by Morrissey is written basically about the Beatle freaks.
Would you, okay, so if they remix or they reissued the box set, would you ever, whoever doesn't own it right now, would you guys run out and buy it for $800? Because that's probably what it will be, if not more. It's not going to be it's going to be a lot.
It wouldn't be $8, but
what
the
would
Beatles
it be?
Box, it wouldn't be, it would probably be a good 500.
Think 500? That's 13. That's 13 records.
500-600. It won't be 800. I mean, we're not talking Chad Kassem pricing here. No offense to Chad Kassem. Hi, Chad. Nice to see you. But, we're not talking about like the Bill Evans, type of thing.
Yeah,
I'd go out. I'd buy it because I only have a few of those mono titles. So I'd go back and pick it up.
If I didn't have it, I would buy it. But I have.
Syd, do you have it?
I have an original mono CD box, not the vinyl. I'm guessing my daughters don't live at home anymore. They're grown and flown, but they're both huge Beatles fans. I'm a huge Beatles fan. I'm guessing there would be a little familial pressure to acquire it on vinyl, even though they're not full time here anymore. Certainly, I've picked up the individual boxes along the way that they've released over the last few years. I think they do a great job. Been really happy with how everything sounded, how everything's looked, and again, I think some of the liner notes, hearing the stories, I think is just absolutely fascinating when you start reading through some of these things. So.
The mistake, basically what you said with Jethro Tull, the brilliance of that is every box is the same size. The Beatles were all different sizes. I can't believe they did that though, right? All those like this Pepper and the White Album and Abbey Road and Let It Be, they're like, are you kidding me? Make one consistent design look.
It's kind of my one quibble with how the Zappa Family Trust has handled some of their archival work, because I'm a huge enormous Zappa fan. And I look at something like Zappa in New York, which I think has been one of the great reevaluations of that entire period of Zappa. But the metal tin manhole cover replica of, a New York City, manhole, and then the disc inside, it's inside foam and it's underneath a book, and there's no way to put that on a shelf without it rolling off and hitting the floor and clatter. I mean, it's about the most unfriendly package, and or the Halloween thing with the giant rubber mask, which is just, it's not all that friendly to the earth. It's just I mean, look, there's a when I was working record retail and then in wholesale, we had something we used to call the SAF, the spousal acceptancy factor. The link tree, or what was it? I forget the Tree Dimensions was the name of the company. If you remember Tree Dimensions, they used to make these CD shelves with dowels that you would try to put together with a friend, where you had to line up one side with all the dowels with all the other side.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And the two of you would take you an entire afternoon to line up the 58 dowels or whatever it was to get the other side on. And it was horrible. It was really stressful. And they would bow, and it looked terrible. It had a terrible spousal acceptancy factor. No one wanted that in the living room. I'm looking at this collection of folks here, and I see some nice shelving in the background here. Tim, you've got Norm. I've seen you on a bunch of things there. Josh, you have some nice shelving in the back. That has a nice spousal acceptancy factor. No one wants a bunch of odd-sized weirdo stuff that makes you look like you're running a pawn shop. Like, let's go a little bit. We're not 14 anymore.
Good point.
Yeah. And another thing too, I mean, going back to the Beatles, I mean, in terms of packaging, maybe it's a stereo. They're doing the stereo from the master tapes instead of that crappy digital version that they did in 2009. I mean, maybe that's another thing. I mean, that's another option. So I don't know. Think out of the box. I know it's not going to be. I just have a feeling it won't be Rubber Soul remix, because that's what we all want. I think it's going to be something different.
If they do Rubber, I know they'll never do this, but if they did Rubber Soul, they ought to, like, even though I know it's sacrilegious to a lot of people, they ought to include the American version as well, because that's the one thing, like, my generation growing up, and that's what we heard. There's argument to be made that the American track list is better than the way the Beatles intended it to be, because it makes it a different sounding album of Rubber Soul. The only one, really. Never happened, but
no. Yeah. Any guesses there, Tim, on what the Beatles are going to do this year? Something will happen. We know that. It's about money.
I kind of thought it was going to be something around Rubber Soul. If they're kind of going backwards, but I don't know. I'd be shocked.
They've been going forwards. Do they start around again?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's going to. I think it's shock value. I think it's going to be something we're not expecting. That's all.
Have you heard? They just found that the tape. Have you heard about the tape they found in the UK? Just 2 weeks after "Please Please Me" came out, they played this prearranged gig that Brian Epstein booked at a private boys' school. The tape, they play a little bit. There's a BBC documentary. It's funky, but it's the only full concert of the Beatles, like an hour show or more or less, and without screaming girls, a boys' school, and Apple could buy that from this. It just came out. They played a bit on it, and that could be a part. Now it's very rough. It's very archival, but that fits right in of start with "Please Please Me," and do a package with this really rare. It's archival, and it's like Harry Smith, field recordings in a way, but it's very important.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing that people don't realize about the Beatles, I mean, is just what a hot band they were. I mean, they were so tight by the time that they came out. I mean, they were just smoking everybody, but it's not as contemporary sounding, obviously, as some of the later albums. But that early stuff's awesome.
Well, it goes back to Malcolm Gladwell, right? The author of Outliers and other. I mean, there's a 10,000 hour rule. I mean, the Beatles were doing their thing in Germany. 7 days a week from 8. What was it? 8 o'clock in 8 o'clock till 8 hours a day for 7 days a week. I mean, George Harrison was 15 or 16 years old back then. I mean, this is crazy what these guys were doing. You would never see that happen today with any band. I mean, yeah, they were doing 8-hour gigs, like with hardly any breaks in between. I mean, those 10,000 hours, and that's what made that band was their time in Germany. But I mean, I think all of them would agree with that for sure, right? That's what matured them.
Hey, I thought we were talking about jazz albums today.
Well, I mean, we there was a structure, but we knew going in that was, I knew going in it would just go from like the Doors to having to look at my favorite album cover all the time. I'm going to bug Mazzy and put that up there again because I know he loves it. So
isn't she married?
I want to show this
to Danny DeVito
for my final offer. One of the greatest sounding records in my collection. This is where Chad stuck 3 albums in one sleeve, which is fine. But I have an original of that. You know, the house that the Capitol Records, one of the first recordings at the Tower, I think. This is an amazing set. This is obviously Analogue Productions, but 45 RPM bonus tracks. I know we didn't get to talk about that. You were going to talk about bonus tracks, but this is one amazing trio.
We're going to do that.
album.
I want Mr. Schwartz back, because I know we're going to do a whole episode on bonus tracks, because I know him and I were talking about that. There's a lot to go over there. I mean, we briefly went into it last week with the Suspicious Minds bonus track on the latest Mobile Fidelity one step.
In mono.
In mono. So there's lots to talk about. So Syd, you need to come back, because I want to dedicate maybe more to that. I think that would be a really fun conversation. Would you be cool with that?
Yeah, look forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. And in terms, you mentioned that Zappa, that's a 40th anniversary New York box, right? If I'm not mistaken. So the viewers know what you were talking about there.
Yeah, and it's don't let the packaging like put you off from not acquiring it, because it's superb. Really, just
are you talking about the Fillmore set? The Fillmore with John and Yoko?
No, this is the Zappa in New York, which came out originally, I believe.
I thought Fillmore East you're talking about. Okay, got it.
Originally in '77, I believe. This is the one where he has members of the SNL horn section, including the Brecker brothers, Michael and Randy, and it's this craziness in terms of the musicianship, where there were no horn charts, so it was like, no problem, I'll just write them, and
Cool.
Yeah, I'll just take care of it while I'm, you guys go park the car. I'll have them done by the time you're back. Kinds of craziness. And, Don Pardo, the, deep voice, SNL announcer, introduces Zappa in the band and goes into some fairly funny stuff. And, they poke fun at, legendary music executive Mo Austin, who recently passed away, and, his relationship with Zappa. So there's humor, there's amazing, jazz rock fusion. He played 5 nights at the Palladium over the, New Year's Eve in '76. They don't really, do shows like that anymore. It's excellent Zappa.
So we can almost do a full roundtable Zappa for 1 hour with, Syd leading this one. I'd like to learn more.
I think we should.
I think we should. I like Zappa, but I'm not that familiar with the history. So I'd love to learn more with Syd on this. Would be amazing, guys. So we got bonus tracks, we got Zappa. I think it could be fun going forward. We'll leave it at that, because it's been about an hour. What do you got there before we go?
Talk about that too. Great sounding jazz record. Since you told me to bring something really good. The 3 Blind Mice label. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about some speaker buster, amazing sounding jazz.
So this roundtable is costing people a lot of money today.
If you haven't heard, the Grateful Dead they've repressed Cornell 77. If you don't have this, it kind of comes in and out every 2 weeks, and like I ordered it, and then it said, oh, it's out of stock, and then the next day I got a shipping notification. Anyway, legendary set.
Plangent process.
Pardon?
Plangent process.
But for the show that never occurred, yeah.
Right. Josh, one more for you, and then we'll leave it at that.
Definitely. I'm going to show up one more Speakers Corner, and this is like an older one. I don't even believe they were called Speakers Corner at the time. I think they were called Varellis or something like that. So this is like a late 90s.
What a great record.
Oh yeah. Wow. Fantastic. A Tulsa guy right here, Mr. JJ Kale. But if you're familiar, you have it on the Shelter label, an original. The Speakers Corner just smokes it. I mean, it is just in your living room. JJ is right there with the guitar. So
is that still in print?
It is not still in print. You have to pick it up on the secondary market. I think it's going between 100 and 200 on Discogs. So it has to be something you love, but it
might go up after today, after people watch this. So maybe grab one. All right, guys, we're going to leave it at that. Thank you, everyone. This has been awesome. We got some great ideas for upcoming shows. I'm really excited. Thank you for our new guests, Josh and Syd. Much appreciated, guys. Have a good weekend. It's been awesome. We'll see you soon. Okay, bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.